In this video, we will teach you 4 mathematic questions and their solutions. Your first question is an exponent problem. Your first step is BEDMAS. I am taking the same bases and multiplying their exponents. I took 1 squared and 1 cubed. I kept the bases and I multiplied the exponents. You can leave the b squared alone because it does not apply to the bases on the top. Your next step is to look at the bottom of the equation. b cubed plus 1 is inside of the brackets. You are going to take the squared that's on the outside of the brackets and apply it to everything on the inside of the brackets. I took b cubed and multiplied its exponent cubed by squared, which is on the outside of the bracket. Then I took the plus 1 and I multiplied its exponent, which is 1, by 2, which is the exponent on the outside of the bracket. This should be the solution of your first step. Your next step is to follow BEDMAS. Because it's a fraction, that means it's division. You're going to take the same bases and subtract their exponents. I'm taking the bases of 1 and I'm subtracting their exponents, 5 minus 2. Then I'm taking the bases of b and I'm subtracting their exponents, 2 minus 6. If you subtracted your exponents properly, you should get the solution 1 cubed plus b to the negative 4. Because the law of math says you're not allowed to have a negative exponent, you have to change your equation into a fraction once again. You're going to place a 1 over top of the equation 1 cubed plus b to the 4th power, because that 1 over is the equivalent to having the negative. If your final equation looks like this, you have the correct solution. This is the second problem. This equation is a factoring problem. Let's take a minute to look inside of our first set of brackets. Inside there are 2 equations in separate brackets. Our first is x y squared minus x squared. Let's try and figure this out. To factor it, I'm going to take my greatest common factor, which is x. I'm going to take the x outside of the brackets so that I can multiply it by everything that's inside of the brackets. You should get x bracket y squared minus x. Let's take a look at our second equation inside the first set of brackets. It's 2y squared minus 2x. What's our greatest common factor? It's 2. We're going to take 2 outside of those little brackets and then multiply everything that's inside of the brackets by it. You should get 2 bracket y squared minus x bracket. In the first set of brackets, altogether you should have x bracket y squared plus x plus 2 bracket y squared minus x. Let's take a look at our second set of brackets in this equation. Inside, there are 2 equations in separate brackets. Let's take a look at the first one. Our first one is x squared minus xy, all in brackets. What's our greatest common factor? It's x. Let's take 1x and put it on the outside of these brackets. What's inside of our brackets beside the x is x minus y. If you were to multiply this equation using distributive property, you would receive what you originally had. Next, we're going to look at the second equation inside of our second set of brackets. 2x minus 2y. What's our greatest common factor? It's 2. Let's take 1, 2 outside of these brackets. What's inside of our brackets? X minus y. If you were to multiply this equation using distributive property, you would receive 2x minus 2y. Altogether in the second set of brackets, you should have x bracket x minus y bracket plus 2 bracket x minus y bracket. In this next step, we're going to take a look at our first set of brackets again. Take your orange x and your orange 2. We're going to add those together inside of their own set of brackets. Beside them, we're going to multiply another equation inside of a pair of brackets. This equation inside of these pair of brackets is going to be y squared minus x. Next, we're going to look at a second set of brackets. Inside, there are two equations. X times x minus y in brackets plus 2 times x minus y in brackets. We're going to take the orange x and the orange 2. We're going to add those together in their own set of brackets. Beside them, you should multiply x minus y in brackets. This final equation should be 2 plus x in brackets multiplying y squared minus x in brackets plus x minus y in brackets multiplying x plus 2 in brackets. This is your factoring solution. In the next problem, I want you to state the domain and range of this function. F of x equals 3x plus 4. Here's a tip for this particular function. You can multiply any number by 3. Because the equation is 3x plus 4, there are no restrictions. Let's go over domain's interval notation first. As you see in the equation, 3x plus 4, x can be any number. Therefore, there are no restrictions, meaning we can use the infinity sign. Your interval notation should be in regular brackets, not closed ones, because we are using the infinity sign. In the brackets, it should be negative infinity, comma, regular infinity. We're going to go over our set notation for domain. You should write the set of all x such that x is equal to all real numbers. This would be written as squiggly bracket, x, draw a straight line, x, all real numbers, and then a squiggly bracket to finish it. This pretty much means that if x were to be any real number, your answer can be infinite. Now let's go over our range. It is quite similar to our domain for this certain function because 3x plus 4. There aren't any restrictions. Therefore, it is the same interval notation, which is bracket, negative infinity, comma, positive infinity, bracket. Our set notation is also the same because of our x value can be any number. Our set notation and interval notation will be very similar to our domain's set notation and interval notation. This is our final problem. Melanie works at a retail store. She makes $10 per hour plus $3 for each item she sells. The amount Melanie makes depends on how many items she sells. So our independent is number of items she sells and our dependent is how much money she makes. You have 3 questions. 1. Find an equation. 2. Put into a table of values, then into ordered pairs. And 3. To graph it. Let's go over our first question, to find an equation. First of all, look throughout the question. Our independent is the number of items she sells, and our independent is always y. So, we should have y equals, look back at our question. Our dependent is how much money she makes. So, she makes $10 per hour plus $3 for each item she sells. Your equation should be y equals 3x, x meaning the item or number of items she sells, plus 10. Again, your equation should be y equals 3x plus 10. Let's go over our second question. To put it into a table of values, then into ordered pairs. First, look at your equation, y equals 3x plus 10. This will help you figure out your table of values. X is our independent. It's the number of items she sells. And y is our dependent. It's how much money she makes. So, substituted. For every 1 X, so that means for every 1 item she sells, she should make $13 because $3 is a charge for the item she sells plus $10 an hour. Let's go to substituting X for 2. 3 times 2, 3X. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 10 would be 16. So, for every 2 items she sells, she makes $16 an hour. For every 3 items she sells, she makes $19 an hour, and so on. So for every item added on she sells per hour, she makes $3 more each time. For ordered pairs, it's quite easy. You just make the list. So for 1 item, she makes $13 an hour. You would put that into brackets as 1,13. You would do this for the rest of the list following through for each variable. Now let's go over our third question, to graph it. Our independent variable is X and our dependent variable is Y. On the X-axis, you should have number of items sold per hour. I chose to jump 1 each time. So you put 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on there separately. I put a centimeter between each space. Y-axis, we should have dollars earned per hour or hours. For this, I jumped by 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and so on. Then you're going to line it up with the table of values that you chose, or the ordered pairs that you have. Look at your equation and do your ordered pairs or table of values. Then you graph it. If you do all of these in order, you should get 1 will follow all the way up until 13. You line up 2, number of items sold per hour, and you will get $16 earned per hour, and so on. This list will continue on, but I only went up to 5. If you have all of these correct, you have found a solution for your question. Thanks so much for